There are moments when even the most powerful people in the world discover they're powerless. For Baek Myung, that moment came twice. First, when an assassin's blade took away his ability to ever father a child, a secret he buried as deeply as the men who tried to kill him. And again, 6 years later, when his dead mother arranged his marriage from beyond the grave. The photograph landed on his desk with the weight of a bomb. Dark skin, quiet eyes that held secrets, and a name, Kiana Rowe, 27, Brooklyn. She's agreed to settle her father's debt, his underboss explained. By marrying you. What his underboss didn't know, what no one could know, was that this marriage was impossible. The most feared Korean crime boss in Manhattan could intimidate politicians, control shipping empires, and make rivals disappear, but he couldn't give this woman a child. Yet somehow, his mother had solved this problem. And as Kiana stepped from the black sedan on Fifth Avenue, clutching a single bag that held everything she owned, Mr. Myung felt something unexpected tighten in his chest. Neither of them realized that before the sun rose, a secret would be revealed that would leave his hands shaking until dawn, a secret that would change everything. Guys, if you're already feeling the tension building, smash that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to be first to know when the next chapter drops. Now, back to the story. The sun was just coming up over Manhattan. All those fancy buildings turning gold in the morning light. And there sat Mr. Myung, the most dangerous man in the city, completely still except for his hands. They wouldn't stop shaking. On his desk were two things, a picture of a woman with these warm brown eyes, and a letter in his mom's handwriting. 6 hours ago, he'd been on top of the world. Now, he wasn't sure who he was anymore. Those hands just wouldn't quit trembling. Not after what he'd learned. Not after what she told him. 7 days earlier. Boss, got a minute? Mr. Myung didn't even look up from his paperwork. Kim, his right-hand man for 8 years now, knew better than to bug him during morning money time. So this had to be big. Make it quick, he said, cold as ice. Kim put down a manila envelope right on top of all those important reports. It's from your mother. She said to give you this exactly 1 month after her funeral. The pen in Myung's hand just stopped. 1 month already? Since they put her in the ground? The days had all blurred together, meetings, taking control, keeping rivals in check now that the legendary Madame Beck was gone. He put his pen down and grabbed the envelope. From how it felt, he was expecting business stuff, contracts, deeds, whatever. His mom had been super detailed about the family's legit businesses. But when he opened it, out slipped a single photo. A woman. Young. Pretty in this quiet way. Dark skin, natural hair pulled back, big brown eyes that looked like they'd seen things. She wasn't smiling, but there was something strong about her. Something tough. What is this? Myung asked, his voice sharper than he meant it to be. Kim shifted his weight like he was uncomfortable. Your mother arranged a marriage before she died. The words just hung there. Like, what? A marriage. Yes, sir. For you. Myung flipped the picture over. On the back, his mother's fancy handwriting, Kiana Rowe, 27, Brooklyn. There's more. Kim carefully put a sealed letter next to the photo. Your mother's explanation. The big windows behind Myung showed the whole city, 40 floors below, but suddenly the office felt tiny. Like he couldn't breathe. Get out, he said quietly. When the door closed, he picked up the letter. The seal broke with a little snap. Inside, his mom was talking to him from the grave. My son. It's been a month since I left. You've handled business exactly like I knew you would, perfectly. But there's one thing I couldn't leave unfixed. The girl in the picture will be your wife. Her dad borrowed from us years ago. The debt's still there. She's agreed to pay it off through marriage. 3 years. That's all I'm asking. Then she can go if she wants. I have reasons for picking her beyond the money. You'll figure them out soon enough. The wedding's happening in a week. Everything's already set up. I've never asked you to just trust me before. I'm asking now, one last time. Love you. Mom. Myung put the letter down super carefully, like it might break. A wife. His mom had gotten him a wife. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at his city. Down there, people were running around like ants, no idea about all the power sitting right up here, in this building, in his family name, in his hands. The Beck crew controlled shipping all up and down the coast. Their legit businesses, shipping, real estate, restaurants, made millions. The other stuff made even more. Politicians called when they needed favors. Rivals stayed away from his turf. At 38, Myung had everything his dad and grandpa built, plus everything he'd added himself. Everything except what the old families cared about most, a kid to take over someday. He pressed his hand against the cold glass. 6 years ago, he'd been walking out of a Korean restaurant. Someone was waiting with a knife. 3 of his bodyguards died that night. The blade meant for his heart ended up in his stomach instead. He lived. The surgeries saved him. But the damage, inside, permanent, took something he couldn't get back. The doctors didn't sugarcoat it, he would never have kids. Only his mom knew how bad the injury really was. Only she understood what that meant for a guy in his position. The family needed someone to take over someday. The bloodline mattered to the old-timers, to all the connections built over generations. A single, childless boss was a boss with a big target on his back. Myung went back to his desk and looked at the picture again. Kiana Rowe. 27. A total stranger who'd agreed to marry one of the scariest men in New York to pay off a debt. What kind of woman makes that kind of deal? His finger touched the edge of the photo. There was something in her eyes, not just fear or giving up, though he could see both. Something else. Like she'd decided to fight. The intercom buzzed. Sir, everyone's waiting in the conference room. Reality hit him like cold water. He had territories to protect, shipments to watch, friends to keep close. Tell them I'm coming. He tucked the photo into his inside pocket, feeling it press against his chest like a question that wouldn't go away. For the next 3 days, Myung didn't mention the letter or the marriage. He ran meetings and made decisions with the same cold focus everyone expected. But at night, alone in the penthouse that used to be his mom's, he'd take out the photo. Kiana Rowe, 27, Brooklyn. On the 4th day, he called Kim to his office. This marriage my mom arranged. Tell me everything. Kim put a thin file on the desk. Not much to tell, boss. The dad borrowed big money 8 years ago. Business went belly up. Been paying just the interest since then. When your mom came with the marriage deal 3 months before she died, the girls said yes right away. Why? Myung asked. The deal wipes the debt clean after 3 years of marriage. Also gives the bride a fat check when it's done. Myung opened the file. Basic stuff. Education, college grad, studied literature. Jobs, office work, currently unemployed. Health, all good. No criminal record. A simple life all wrapped up in boring facts. Nothing that explained why his mom picked this specific woman. Does she know about me? Myung asked quietly. Kim hesitated. She knows who you are, boss. What you do. Your reputation. And she still said yes. Yes, sir. Myung closed the file. Set it up, then. Sir. Kim looked surprised he wasn't fighting it. My mom never did anything without a reason. If this was important enough for her to arrange from her deathbed, I'll do it. Kim nodded and turned to leave, then stopped. Sir, one more thing. Your mother left instructions that the marriage be real. Legally binding, all the way. Myung's jaw got tight. His mom knew his condition. Knew what he could never give. What was she up to? Like I said. Set it up. For 3 more days, Myung got ready. He had a room prepared in the east wing of the penthouse, fresh flowers, new sheets, security cameras. He cleared his schedule for the wedding and the days after. He told himself it was just business. Nothing more. A last request from his mom, maybe meant to make him look stronger, to show power through a good marriage. But why this woman? Why someone with no connections, no strategic value? The night before the wedding, Myung stood at his window watching snow start to fall over the city. Manhattan looked different under white, softer even as it got colder. Tomorrow he'd marry a stranger. A woman who'd agreed to tie herself to him, to his name, his world, his dangers, for 3 years. And he'd have to face the one truth he'd hidden from everyone but his mom, that he could never give her kids. Never continue the Beck family line. Never do the one thing everyone expected from him. He put his hand on the cold glass, watching his breath make fog on the perfect surface. For the first time since his mom's funeral, Myung felt completely alone. The wedding day. Snow was really coming down when the black car pulled up to the building. Myung watched from his office window as the driver opened the back door. She stepped out carefully onto the icy sidewalk. Kiana Rowe. His bride. She had on a simple cream-colored dress under her open coat, nice, classy, but clearly not expensive. The winter wind pushed against her, showing how small she actually was. She held just one bag with everything she was bringing to her new life. She looked up at the tall building and swallowed hard, squaring her shoulders like she was getting ready for a fight. Myung watched her, this stranger who was about to take his name. She moved like someone being careful. Her eyes checked the street, the door, the security guys, looking for exits, checking for danger. This wasn't just nerves. This was someone who'd learned how to spot trouble. Someone who'd learned to stay alive by not being noticed. Something in his chest got tight all of a sudden. The wedding happened that afternoon. Private. Quick. Just 3 trusted guys and a judge who knew not to ask questions. Kiana's hand shook when she signed the papers. Her voice was barely a whisper when she said, "I do." Mr. Myung noticed everything. How she jumped a little when he reached for her hand. How she held her breath when he stood close. How her smile never reached her eyes. This woman wasn't just shy. She was scared. When it was over, when they were legally married, Myung didn't know what to do next. This wasn't like closing a business deal where you shake hands and leave. This wasn't like handling a threat. This was something totally different. "I made dinner reservations," he said finally. "If you're hungry." She looked up at him, surprise flashing across her face. "Yes," she said softly. "Thank you." As they left the building together, as husband and wife, Myung felt weirdly off balance, like, for the first time in years, he wasn't totally in control of what was happening. His mom had started something. Something he didn't get yet. But looking at the woman next to him, this stranger who was now his wife, he felt something unfamiliar stirring inside him. Curiosity. What Mr. Myung didn't know was that his mom had kept secrets even from him. And one of those secrets was walking right beside him, carrying a truth that would leave his hands shaking until dawn. "I do." Kiana stared at herself in the cracked bathroom mirror of her tiny Brooklyn apartment. The words sounded hollow, empty. "I do." She tried again, a little louder. "I do." This time with her chin up, eyes locked with her reflection. She'd been practicing for an hour. Like somehow saying these 2 stupid words with enough confidence might make this whole crazy situation less terrifying. Today was her wedding day. In 6 hours, she'd be Mrs. Baek Myung, wife to the most feared Korean man in New York City. The thought made her stomach flip. She gripped the edge of the sink, breathing deep. This wasn't how her life was supposed to go. But then again, nothing had gone according to plan since her dad's business crashed 8 years ago. Her phone buzzed on the counter. "Dad." "Hey," she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. You okay, baby girl? He sounded worse than she did, tired, broken, guilty. I'm fine, Dad. Really? The lie came easily after so many years of pretending things were okay. You don't have to do this, Kiana. We can find another way. There is no other way. We both know that. The silence on the line said everything. They'd been through this argument a dozen times since Madame Beck had made her offer 3 months ago. 3 months earlier. The nurses' station at Manhattan Memorial was quiet that night. Kiana had just finished her shift, feet aching from 12 hours of moving between patients. The private nursing agency barely paid enough to cover her tiny apartment, but at least it helped chip away at her dad's mountain of debt. Miss Rowe? She turned to find a thin older woman standing there, perfectly dressed despite the late hour. Something about her made Kiana straighten up automatically. Yes? I'm Madame Beck. I'd like to discuss a business proposition with you. That name. Beck. The family her father owed money to. The loan sharks who kept raising the interest whenever he missed a payment. Fear flashed through her, but she kept her face neutral. She'd learned long ago not to show weakness. I have nothing to discuss with you, Kiana said, reaching for her coat. Your father owes my family $327,000. The woman stated it calmly, like mentioning the weather. With current interest, he'll never pay it off. Not in his lifetime. Kiana's hand froze midair. That number was higher than she'd thought. Dad had always been vague about the exact amount. I'm offering you a way to clear the debt entirely. I don't have that kind of money. No. But you have something else. The woman's eyes assessed her coolly. My son needs a wife. The hospital hallway seemed to tilt sideways. You can't be serious. 3 years of marriage. The debt vanishes. Plus a settlement of $200,000 for you personally when the term is complete. And if I say no? Madame Beck didn't answer directly. She didn't have to. Your father's medical bills are quite substantial. His heart won't survive another collection visit. Present day. Kiana shook off the memory and finished the call with her dad, promising to visit once she was settled. Whatever that meant in this situation. She looked around her tiny apartment one last time. Everything she was taking fit in one bag. Not much to show for 27 years of life. Next to her bed sat the worn photograph of her mom, gone 10 years now. I'm doing what I have to do, she whispered to it. Just like you always did. The black sedan arrived exactly at noon. The driver didn't speak as they crossed the Brooklyn Bridge into Manhattan. Kiana watched the city change outside her window. From the familiar streets of Brooklyn to the gleaming towers of Midtown. When they turned onto Fifth Avenue, the buildings seemed to stretch impossibly high, making her feel smaller by the second. The car stopped in front of one of the tallest. The driver opened her door, and the winter wind hit her immediately, cutting through her thin coat. Snow was falling harder now, collecting on her shoulders as she looked up at the massive building. This was it. The home of the Beck family. The lair of the dragon, as people called it. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, clutching her single bag like a shield. The security men watched her with blank faces as she entered the lobby, all marble and glass and quiet money. One of them led her to a private elevator. No buttons inside. Just a keycard he swiped before stepping back out. As the doors closed, she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirrored wall. She looked terrified. I do, she whispered one more time. But it didn't help anymore. The elevator climbed smoothly for what seemed like forever before opening directly into a hallway with a single door. A middle-aged Korean woman in a simple black dress stood waiting. Miss Rowe. I'm Mrs. Park, the housekeeper. Please follow me. Kiana followed her through the door into a massive penthouse apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed all of Manhattan spread out below. The place was beautiful in a cold, perfect way. Expensive furniture, artwork on the walls, not a thing out of place. Not a home. A showpiece. The ceremony will be at 3 o'clock, Mrs. Park explained, leading her down a hallway. This will be your room. The bedroom was bigger than Kiana's entire apartment. A huge bed with crisp white linens. Fresh flowers on the nightstand. A bathroom with a tub you could swim in. There are clothes in the closet if you'd like to change. Mr. Myung selected them himself. That detail sent a shiver up her spine. He'd been thinking about what she'd wear. What she'd look like. Thank you, Kiana managed to say. When Mrs. Park left, Kiana sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. She hadn't slept in days. How could she, knowing what was coming? She opened the closet and froze. Rows of beautiful clothes, all in her size. How did he know her size? She pulled out a simple cream-colored dress. It was lovely, modest, perfect for a winter wedding. Perfect for a business transaction. Because that's all this was, right? A deal. 3 years of her life to save her father's. 3 years pretending to be the wife of a man who terrified half of New York. What would he expect from her? The question had kept her awake for months. Madame Beck hadn't specified those details in their arrangement. My son is a private man, was all she'd said. But he is not cruel. Not cruel. Was that supposed to be comforting? Kiana changed into the cream dress, which fit perfectly. She tried to eat the lunch Mrs. Park brought, but her stomach was too tight with nerves. At exactly 2:55, a knock came at her door. It's time, Miss Rowe. She followed Mrs. Park to a large room with those same massive windows. A small group of men stood waiting. And there, in the center, was him. Baek Myung. He was taller than she expected. Broad shoulders in a perfectly tailored suit. Sharp jawline. Intense eyes that missed nothing. He looked exactly like what he was, a man accustomed to power. A man who got what he wanted. Their eyes met across the room, and Kiana felt a jolt of something unexpected. Not just fear. Something else. He was studying her, really looking at her, with an intensity that made her breath catch. The ceremony passed in a blur. A judge speaking words she barely heard. Papers to sign with a pen that felt too heavy in her shaking hand. I do, she whispered when prompted, the practiced phrase now barely audible. When it came time for him to take her hand, she flinched without meaning to. An automatic response from years ago, another man, another life. She saw Myung notice. Saw the slight narrowing of his eyes. And then it was done. She was Mrs. Beck. The small group dispersed quickly, leaving her standing alone with her husband. The word felt impossible in her mind. We have dinner reservations, he said, his voice deep and surprisingly quiet. If you're hungry. The simple normalcy of the suggestion caught her off guard. Yes, she answered, surprised by her own response. Thank you. They walked together to the elevator, a careful distance between them. In the mirrored walls, they looked like strangers. Which they were. He hadn't tried to touch her again after that initial flinch. Hadn't smiled or made small talk. But there was something careful in the way he kept his distance. Something deliberate. As if he was trying not to scare her. The car waited downstairs, sleek and black with tinted windows. He opened the door for her himself, not touching her, not rushing her. As they drove through the snowy Manhattan streets, Kiana clutched her small purse tighter than necessary. Inside was something she hadn't mentioned, something that could change everything. She just needed to find the courage to show him. The owner of Marrow and Mason had seen many powerful men enter his restaurant. But something about the way Mr. Myung looked at his new bride, not with possession but with genuine puzzlement, made him realize he was witnessing something unusual. The Dragon of Manhattan never looked puzzled. About anything. Mr. Beck, your private room is ready, the owner said, bowing slightly. As always. The staff moved with practiced efficiency, no one making eye contact, no one speaking unless spoken to. Even the busboys knew who this man was. What he could do with a single phone call. The woman beside him was new, though. Pretty in a quiet way, dressed elegantly but simply. She looked like she was trying very hard not to be noticed, which was probably impossible when standing next to Baek Myung. This way, the owner said, leading them to a secluded room in the back of the restaurant, hidden behind a heavy velvet curtain. Inside was a single table, already set with fine china and crystal. A bottle of wine breathing. Fresh flowers. Soft music playing from hidden speakers. Will there be anything else, sir? Mr. Myung shook his head slightly. The owner bowed again and backed out of the room, closing the curtain behind him. No one will disturb us, Mr. Myung said, his voice low. The staff knows better. Kiana nodded, her eyes taking in the room, checking the exits, the windows, the layout. The habit was automatic now, like breathing. He held her chair for her, careful not to touch her as she sat. Then he took his own seat across the table. They sat in silence as a waiter appeared through the curtain, poured wine, and left again just as silently. Kiana stared at the deep red liquid in her glass but didn't touch it. It's not poisoned, Mr. Myung said, a hint of something like humor in his voice. That would be a waste of a very expensive marriage. Her eyes snapped up to his face. Was he making a joke? I don't drink much, she said simply. Makes it harder to stay alert. Something flashed in his eyes, recognition, maybe. He understood that kind of caution. You don't have to fear me, Mr. Myung said finally, his voice lower than she expected. Kiana looked up, surprised by the words. Everyone fears you, Mr. Myung. Everyone should, he admitted. But not you. Not in this. She studied him for a long moment, really studied him, like she was searching for the lie beneath his words. Whatever she found made her exhale slowly. The waiter reappeared with appetizers, small beautiful things on large white plates. Kiana waited until Mr. Myung took a bite before trying her own. My father's debt, she said quietly once they were alone again. How long until it's paid? 3 years of marriage. Then you're free. The contract is clear. Kiana nodded slowly, pushing food around her plate. The question that had haunted her for months pressed against her chest, demanding to be asked. Her hand tightened on her fork. And what do you expect from me during those 3 years? The question hung between them. Mr. Myung set down his glass carefully, his dark eyes unreadable. I expect you to play the role of my wife in public. Attend events when required. Live in my home. Beyond that, he paused. Your room will be your own. I will not enter unless invited. Kiana's eyes widened slightly. Whatever answer she had expected, it wasn't that. Why? She whispered. He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. How could he explain that he had long ago accepted a life without intimacy, without legacy, without the one thing every man in his position was expected to provide? Instead, he took a sip of wine, his expression carefully neutral. Does it matter? I'm offering you safety. Privacy. Respect. Most arranged marriages don't include those things. No, she agreed softly. They don't. Something shifted in the air between them. Not warmth, exactly, but maybe the possibility of it. Tell me about your father, Mr. Myung said as the main course arrived. Kiana hesitated, then spoke carefully. He owned a small construction company. Good man, hard worker. But trusted the wrong people. Lost everything except our house, and almost lost that too. She paused. Your mother offered him a loan when no bank would. And the interest kept growing. Yes. A simple word heavy with 8 years of struggle. My mother could be demanding in business matters. Kiana almost smiled at that understatement. She could be terrifying. For the first time, something close to a real smile touched Mr. Myung's lips. Yes. She could. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Kiana noticed he barely touched his food, just moved it around expertly to make it look eaten. Another person who'd learned to stay vigilant even during meals. After the 3 years, she asked suddenly, "What happens?" "You get a settlement. $500,000. Your father's debt is erased completely. You can go anywhere, do anything you want." Kiana nearly choked on her water. 500? The contract said 200. I've increased it. Consider it a wedding gift. She stared at him, completely confused now. Why would you do that? Again, he didn't answer directly. My mother chose you specifically. That makes me curious. Kiana's hand moved unconsciously to her purse beside her chair. Inside was the letter Madame Beck had given her just days before she died. A letter she'd been instructed to share with Myung when the time was right. Was now that time? I met your mother at the hospital, Kiana said carefully. I was her private nurse during her last weeks. Mr. Myung went completely still. You were her nurse? She never mentioned that. She was a private person. Yes. She was. His eyes narrowed slightly. What else did she tell you? Kiana took a deep breath. This was dangerous territory. That her son needed a wife. That certain people were pressuring him about continuing the family line. That appearances mattered in your world. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. And you agreed to this arrangement knowing who I am? What I do? I didn't have much choice, did I? She met his gaze directly. But your mother promised me one thing that made it possible. What was that? That you were many things, dangerous, powerful, ruthless when needed. But never cruel. Never to women. Never to those under your protection. She paused. She said you were your father's son in business, but her son in private. Something flashed across his face, surprise, pain, something deeper she couldn't name. My mother talked too much, he said quietly. Or maybe just enough, Kiana replied. Their eyes met across the table, really met for the first time. For a brief moment, they weren't boss and employee's daughter, weren't powerful man and frightened woman. They were just two people whose lives had been directed by the same formidable woman. The dessert arrived, something chocolate and elaborate that neither of them touched. There will be events, Mr. Myung said finally, returning to practicalities. Business dinners. Meetings with certain people. You'll be expected to attend as my wife. I understand. Mrs. Park will help you with clothing, social expectations. Security will be with you whenever you leave the building. Am I a prisoner then? Kiana asked, keeping her voice neutral. No. You're a target. His voice was matter-of-fact. My wife becomes a way to hurt me. That makes you valuable to certain people. The reality of her new life settled on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. She wasn't just a fake wife. She was a potential pawn in whatever dangerous game Mr. Myung played every day. Is that why, she gestured vaguely between them, why you don't want? No. The word was sharp, final. That's something else entirely. Kiana's hand moved to her purse again. Inside was the letter, yes, but also something else. Something Madame Beck had told her about in whispered confidence during those long nights in the hospital room. The secret Mr. Myung thought only his mother knew. It's getting late, he said, checking his watch. We should go. He settled the bill without looking at it, signing his name with a quick, practiced motion. As he helped Kiana with her coat, still careful not to touch her, she found herself studying his profile. This dangerous man who had just promised her safety. This powerful man who seemed to want nothing from her except her presence. This stranger who was now her husband. Nothing made sense. The car was waiting outside, snow still falling gently around them. Mr. Myung opened the door for her, and Kiana slid inside, clutching her purse tightly against her chest. As they drove away, neither noticed the man seated at a corner table near the entrance. He watched their departure with narrowed eyes, then pulled out his phone and dialed. The dragon has taken a wife, he whispered into the phone. And you're not going to believe who she is. The first thing Kiana noticed about the penthouse wasn't the luxury. It was the complete absence of family photos, except for one, partially hidden behind Mr. Myung's desk, a woman with the same sharp eyes as his, holding what looked like a baby. The car ride back from dinner had been quiet. Not uncomfortable exactly, just careful. Like they were both walking on ice, testing its thickness. Snow was really coming down now, turning Manhattan into something from a fairy tale, if fairy tales included crime bosses and arranged marriages. Home sweet home, Mr. Myung said as the elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse foyer. There was no humor in his voice, just a flat statement of fact. Kiana stepped inside, still clutching her purse like it contained diamonds instead of a single letter and a hospital record she'd smuggled out against all rules. The weight of both secrets pressed against her ribs. The lights of the city spread out below them through those massive windows, snow swirling in the darkness like lost stars. Mrs. Park will show you to your room, Mr. Myung said, checking his watch. I have some calls to make. Just like that, he was gone, disappearing down a hallway, leaving Kiana standing in the massive living room. The housekeeper appeared almost immediately, as if summoned by magic. This way, Mrs. Beck. The title made Kiana's stomach flip. Mrs. Beck. That wasn't her. Could never be her. Yet here she was. Please, call me Kiana, she said softly. Mrs. Park's expression didn't change. As you wish. Your room is this way. They walked down a long hallway, passing several closed doors. The penthouse was even bigger than Kiana had realized, spanning what must have been half the building's top floor. Mr. Myung's suite is at the end of the hallway, Mrs. Park explained, pointing to a set of double doors far beyond Kiana's room. His study is through there, she added, indicating another door closer by. He often works late. Kiana nodded, mentally mapping the layout. Old habits. This is your suite, Mrs. Park said, opening a door to reveal the same room Kiana had used to change before the wedding. It was beautiful, all soft grays and blues, with a sitting area, a massive bed, and those same floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The bathroom was bigger than Kiana's entire Brooklyn apartment, with a tub that looked like it could fit 3 people. But what caught her eye was the door. The heavy, solid door with the shiny new deadbolt on the inside. A lock. He'd given her a room with a lock. Is there anything else you need tonight? Mrs. Park asked. Kiana shook her head, still staring at the lock. No. Thank you. When the housekeeper left, Kiana walked slowly around the room, running her fingers over expensive fabrics, opening drawers to find them already filled with clothes in her size. In the bathroom, all her favorite products waited, the exact brands she used, things she could barely afford usually. He'd done his homework. Or his mother had. She sat on the edge of the bed, suddenly exhausted. The day had been a lifetime, waking up in Brooklyn, practicing, I do, in her cracked mirror, and now sitting in a penthouse as Mrs. Baek Myung. And the strangest part? He wanted nothing from her. Not her body, not her mind, just her presence. Her name on a marriage certificate. It made no sense. Kiana pulled the letter from her purse, turning it over in her hands. Madame Beck's elegant handwriting addressing it to her son. The wax seal still intact. When the time is right, the old woman had said, pressing it into Kiana's hand. You'll know when. Was tonight that time? After he'd been so unexpectedly decent? After he'd promised her safety, privacy, freedom from expectations most men would have demanded immediately? Or was it too soon? Would the contents destroy whatever fragile peace they'd established? She slipped the letter back into her purse and went to the window, watching the snow turn the city into a dreamscape. So different from her Brooklyn view of fire escapes and brick walls. Meanwhile, in his study, Mr. Myung sat behind his desk, tie loosened, drink untouched beside him. He wasn't making calls. He was staring at the same photograph Kiana had noticed, his mother holding an infant. Him, decades ago. The only personal photo he allowed himself to keep. What game were you playing, mother? He murmured, running his thumb along the frame's edge. What did you tell her? The dinner had been unexpected. Kiana Rowe, no, Kiana Beck now, wasn't what he'd anticipated. There was fear there, yes, but something else too. Intelligence. Dignity. Careful observation. She'd noticed things. How he checked exits. How he positioned himself to watch the room. How he made his food look eaten without actually consuming much. She had the same habits. The same caution. Where had she learned that? And why had his mother chosen her specifically? Not just some random debtor's daughter, but a woman who had been his mother's nurse. Who had spent time with her, talked with her, perhaps learned things no one else knew. Things about him. Mr. Myong's hand moved unconsciously to his abdomen, to the scar hidden beneath expensive fabric. Did Kiana know? Had his mother told her about his condition? About his inability to give her children? Was that why she'd seemed so relieved when he promised not to enter her room? Because she already knew he couldn't perform his husbandly duties? The thought made his jaw tighten. Shame wasn't an emotion he allowed himself often, but it crept in around the edges sometimes, in the quiet moments. The great dragon of Manhattan, unable to continue his line. Unable to give his family the one thing they valued above all else. His phone buzzed. A text from Kim. 3 separate people have called asking about your marriage. Word is spreading. Of course it was. Nothing stayed secret in their world. By morning, every rival family would know he'd taken a wife. They'd be scrambling to learn who she was, what connections she brought, what leverage she might provide. They'd find nothing. A nurse's aide with a father in debt. No power, no connections, no strategic value. Unless his mother had seen something he couldn't yet see. Mr. Myong rubbed his temples. He needed to focus on business, on the shipment coming in next week, on the territory dispute brewing in Queens. Not on the quiet woman now living just down the hall. Back in her room, Kiana had showered and changed into silk pajamas she'd found in a drawer. They fit perfectly, like everything else. She sat cross-legged on the massive bed, her wet hair wrapped in a towel, staring at her phone. 3 missed calls from her dad. A text asking if she was okay. What could she possibly say? I'm fine, Dad. My new husband, the terrifying crime boss, has promised not to touch me. Great news, right? Instead, she sent a simple, I'm okay. Call tomorrow. She couldn't talk to him tonight. Couldn't pretend things were normal when her entire world had shifted on its axis. Kiana unwrapped her hair, combing through the damp curls with her fingers. Through the windows, the snow kept falling, piling up on the balcony outside. She'd never seen the city like this, from above, silent and white and endless. Her eyes drifted to her purse on the nightstand. The letter inside seemed to pulse with its own energy, demanding attention. What would happen if she showed it to him tonight? Would it make things better or infinitely worse? Would he be angry his mother had shared medical details with a stranger? Or would he be relieved someone else knew, someone who didn't judge him for it? Kiana got up and paced the room, bare feet silent on plush carpet. She tried to imagine life here for the next 3 years. Pretending to be this man's wife. Attending events. Playing a role. All while knowing his deepest secret, a secret he didn't know she knew. Could she really go 3 years without telling him? Without showing him the letter his mother had entrusted to her? And what about the other thing, the bigger thing, the real reason Madame Beck had arranged this marriage? The reason that had nothing to do with her father's debt and everything to do with a hospital record currently burning a hole in her purse? No. She couldn't wait 3 years. Couldn't even wait 3 days. Some truths were too important. Kiana checked the delicate watch on her wrist, another gift, left on her pillow. 11:45 p.m. Was he still awake? Still in his study? She should wait until morning. Should get some sleep, clear her head, approach this rationally. But she knew herself too well. If she went to bed now, she'd spend the night staring at the ceiling, the weight of unspoken words crushing her chest. Better to rip the bandage off quickly. Better to know where they stood. Decision made, Kiana dressed in simple black pants and a sweater. She brushed her hair, still damp, and pulled it back into its usual style. No makeup. No pretense. Just truth. She took the letter from her purse, along with the folded hospital record. Her hand trembled slightly as she held them. 7 years she'd carried this secret. 7 years of wondering, of what-ifs, of might-have-beens. In his study, Mr. Myung had moved from his desk to the leather chair by the window. The snow was hypnotic, making the city look clean, innocent. A lie he knew too well. The whiskey in his glass remained untouched. He never actually drank it. Just liked the ritual, the normalcy of it. Pretending to be like other men who could relax, could let their guard down, could blur the edges of their thoughts. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Kim. Park wants to meet tomorrow. Says it's urgent. Park. His cousin. The one person besides his mother who knew everything about his condition. The one who stood to inherit if Myung died without children. Which was inevitable now. He didn't respond to the text. Park could wait. Everything could wait. Tonight, for the first time in years, Mr. Myung felt something he couldn't quite name. Not fear, not exactly. More like uncertainty. As if the ground beneath his carefully constructed life had shifted slightly. All because of a woman with cautious eyes and a quiet voice, who flinched when he reached for her hand but didn't cower from his gaze. Who asked direct questions and seemed to see through the armor he'd spent decades building. What had his mother told her? What did she know? The clock on his desk showed midnight. He should sleep. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own dangers. The news of his marriage would ripple through the underworld, creating waves he'd need to navigate carefully. But sleep felt impossible tonight. A soft knock on his study door broke the silence. 3 gentle taps, almost hesitant. Mr. Myung froze. Only one person would be knocking at this hour. Come in, he called, not moving from his chair. The door opened slowly, and there she stood. Kiana. His wife of less than 12 hours. Her hair was damp, her face bare of makeup, her expression unreadable. In her hand was a folded piece of paper. I'm sorry to disturb you, she said softly. But there's something I need to show you. Something your mother gave me before she died. At exactly midnight, Kiana took a deep breath and knocked on his study door. In her hand was a folded piece of paper that had traveled with her for 7 years. A secret that could either bridge the gulf between them or shatter whatever fragile trust they'd begun to build. Mr. Myung had faced down rival bosses, corrupt officials, and assassins without his pulse rising. But the sight of Kiana standing in his doorway at midnight, clutching a worn piece of paper, made his heart skip a beat. She looked different now, hair damp from a shower, face clean of makeup, dressed simply in black pants and a gray sweater. Somehow more real than the nervous bride from earlier. I'm sorry to disturb you, she said softly. But there's something I need to show you. I know you're on the edge of your seat right now, this is where everything changes. If you're feeling that tension building, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because the revelation coming next is something you won't see coming. Back to the story. Mr. Myung gestured to the chair across from him. Come in. Kiana stepped inside, her eyes taking in the study, the walls of books, the expensive desk, the single photo of his mother half hidden among business papers. Her gaze lingered on the untouched whiskey by his hand. You don't actually drink it, do you? She asked quietly. The question caught him off guard. No. Your mother didn't either. She'd pour it, hold it, even put it to her lips. But I never once saw her swallow. Kiana's lips curved in the ghost of a smile. She said clear minds make better decisions than fuzzy ones. Something cold slid down Mr. Myung's spine. This woman didn't just know of his mother. She knew her habits, her words, her private moments. Sit, he said, his voice careful. Tell me how you really knew my mother. Kiana settled into the chair, the paper still clutched in her hand. She took a deep breath, like someone preparing to dive into deep water. 8 months ago, I was assigned as your mother's night nurse at Manhattan Memorial. Private room, private care, no hospital records under her real name. Everything kept quiet. The vacation she claimed to be taking, Mr. Myung said quietly. She was in the hospital. Kiana nodded. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Too advanced for treatment. She refused chemo, said she didn't want to waste her remaining time being sick from medicine that wouldn't save her anyway. Mr. Myung's hands tightened on the arms of his chair. His mother had hidden her illness completely. Had arranged her own care, her own death, without telling him. Without giving him the chance to what? Say goodbye properly? Show weakness? Grieve before she was gone. She made me promise not to tell you, Kiana continued, as if reading his thoughts. Said you had enough burdens without watching her fade away. Said it was her final gift to you, to handle her own ending. Something tight and painful formed in Mr. Myung's chest. So like his mother to make that choice. To control even her own death. For 3 months, I was with her every night. From 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. At first, we barely spoke. I did my job, she watched me do it. But the nights are long when you can't sleep from pain. Kiana's eyes took on a faraway look, remembering. One night, maybe a month in, she asked about my father's debt. I was shocked, I didn't think anyone knew about that besides us. But your mother, she knew everything. Yes, Mr. Myung said softly. She did. She told me she could make it disappear. All of it. If I would do one thing for her. Marry her son. Kiana nodded. At first I thought she was delirious from the medication. Or testing me somehow. But she was completely serious. Why did you agree? The question that had been bothering him since he'd seen her photograph. You must have known who I was. What I do. I did. Kiana's eyes met his directly. Your mother didn't hide anything about you. She told me you were dangerous, powerful, feared. That you'd done things most people would consider unforgivable. And yet you still said yes. Because she also told me things nobody else knows. Kiana's voice dropped lower. Like how you visit your father's grave every month with fresh flowers. How you personally paid college tuition for the children of a man who died working for you. How you make sure the elderly shop owners in your territory never get robbed or harassed. Mr. Myung felt exposed suddenly, like someone had peeled away his armor. These were private things, quiet things he did without witnesses. My mother talked too much, he said, echoing his words from dinner. Or maybe she wanted me to see the whole man, not just the reputation. Kiana's fingers tightened on the paper she held. But there was more to it than just canceling my father's debt. What do you mean? Your mother was worried about you. About what would happen after she was gone. Mr. Myung's jaw tightened. I've run the organization for years. I don't need protection. Not business protection. Personal protection. Kiana hesitated. She told me about your injury. About what it meant for your future. The room seemed to grow colder. Mr. Myung went completely still, a predator sensing danger. What exactly did she tell you? His voice was dangerously quiet now. That 6 years ago, you were attacked. That the knife damaged things that couldn't be repaired. That you can't. Kiana faltered, searching for gentle words. Can't father children, he finished flatly. Can't continue the Beck line. Can't fulfill the most basic expectation of my position. Kiana nodded, her eyes not leaving his. There was no pity there, which surprised him. Just calm acceptance. She was worried your cousin Park would use it against you. That he's been pressuring the elder members of the council about succession. About the future. This wasn't news to Mr. Myung. Park had been circling like a vulture since his mother's funeral, making subtle comments, asking pointed questions. Nothing direct, Park wasn't that brave, but the threat was there. So my mother's solution was to find me a wife? To create the appearance of a potential heir? Mr. Myung shook his head. That buys time, nothing more. No, there's more to it than that. Kiana finally extended her hand, offering the paper she'd been holding. This is. The sharp ring of a phone cut through the room. Not his cell, the secure line on his desk, the one that rang only for genuine emergencies. Mr. Myung held up a hand, silencing Kiana as he reached for the phone. Yes, he answered, his voice instantly shifting to the cold, controlled tone of the dragon. Kiana watched his face change as he listened to whoever was on the other end. The openness of moments before vanished, replaced by something hard and dangerous. When? He asked. Then, secure the site. Touch nothing. I'm on my way. He hung up and stood in one fluid motion. I have to go. What's happened? Kiana asked, still holding the paper out. Business. The word was clipped, final. We'll continue this when I return. He moved to a cabinet near the window, unlocked it with a key from his pocket, and removed a gun, which he tucked efficiently into a shoulder holster. Stay in the penthouse. Security knows not to let anyone up. He checked his watch. I'll be back by morning. But, Kiana started, gesturing to the paper. Keep it safe. Mr. Myung paused at the door, looking back at her. Whatever it is, whatever my mother told you, it can wait a few hours. And then he was gone, the energy in the room shifting with his absence. Kiana sat frozen in the chair, paper still in her outstretched hand, the moment broken. She sighed and lowered her arm. Just her luck, finally working up the courage to tell him everything, only to be interrupted by some crisis. Standing slowly, she walked to his desk, curious despite herself. What kind of emergency pulled a man like him out at midnight? The papers there told her nothing, just business reports, property listings, things that looked boringly legitimate. Then her eye caught something on the floor near the cabinet he'd opened. A small key, probably dropped in his hurry. Next to it, partially hidden by the edge of an oriental rug, was what looked like a wall safe. Kiana knelt down, examining it without touching anything. The door was slightly ajar, again, probably from his haste. She was about to turn away, to respect his privacy, when something inside caught her eye. A cream-colored envelope with her name on it. Her name. In Madame Beck's handwriting. Heart pounding, Kiana carefully removed the envelope. On the front, below her name, was a message. To be opened only after you have told my son everything. Kiana's fingers trembled. But I haven't told him the most important part, she whispered to the empty room. As Mr. Myung's car disappeared into the night, Kiana returned to the study and noticed something she hadn't seen before, a small safe, partially open. Inside was a letter addressed to her in his mother's handwriting, with instructions not to open it until she had told him everything. But I haven't told him the most important part, she whispered. The warehouse was on fire when Mr. Myung arrived. His men were scrambling, documents burning, years of careful work going up in flames. On the wall, spray-painted in red, congratulations on your marriage. The message dripped like blood under the emergency lights. Mr. Myung stepped out of his car, snow melting beneath his feet as heat from the blaze pushed against him like a living thing. The smell of burning paper and chemicals filled the air. What happened? He asked Kim, who appeared at his side instantly. Professional job. Security system disabled. Guards drugged, not killed. They knew exactly what they were doing. Mr. Myung's face gave away nothing as he watched firefighters battle the flames. This warehouse was supposed to be a secret, one of 3 locations where they kept certain financial records. Records that couldn't exist digitally. Couldn't be traced. And now they were ash. The timing isn't a coincidence, Kim said quietly, nodding toward the read message. No, Mr. Myung agreed. It's not. The wedding had been private. No announcements, no public ceremony. Yet somehow, within hours, not only did someone know he'd married, they'd organized this attack. There were only two possibilities: either he had a leak in his inner circle, or someone had been watching him very, very closely. Neither option was comforting. Sir, another man approached, his face grim. You need to see this. He led Mr. Myung around the side of the building, away from the fire and the firefighters. In the alley, barely visible in the dim light, was another message spray-painted on a dumpster. Ask your wife about Park. Mr. Myung stared at it, something cold settling in his stomach. Park. His cousin. The one who stood to gain everything if he died without an heir. And somehow, Kiana was connected to him? Sir. Kim was watching him carefully. What does it mean? It means someone's playing games, Mr. Myung said, his voice deadly calm. And I don't like games. He turned back toward the car, already reaching for his phone. Double security at all locations. Check on the shipment coming in tomorrow. And get me everything we have on my wife's background. I thought we already vetted her. Apparently not enough. Mr. Myung's eyes were cold as winter. Someone thinks they know something I don't. Back at the penthouse, Kiana couldn't sleep. After finding the letter addressed to her in the safe, she'd retreated to her room, heart pounding. She'd placed it on her nightstand, next to the other papers she needed to show Mr. Myung, the hospital records, the original letter from his mother. So many secrets. So many unspoken truths between them. But sleep wouldn't come. The penthouse felt too big, too quiet, the bed too soft after years of her cheap mattress in Brooklyn. And her mind wouldn't stop racing. At 2 a.m., she gave up and got out of bed. Maybe some tea would help. She wrapped herself in the silky robe that had been left for her, another perfect fit, and padded barefoot to the kitchen. The penthouse was eerily silent. Even the usual city noises were muffled by the thick windows and the still falling snow. Kiana found the kitchen easily enough, all gleaming stainless steel and marble countertops. As she waited for the water to boil, she let her eyes wander around the space. Like the rest of the penthouse, it was beautiful but impersonal. No magnets on the fridge. No notes stuck to counters. No family photos. Except there, half hidden behind a coffee maker, was a small frame. Kiana moved closer, curious. It wasn't a photo but a child's drawing. Crude stick figures labeled Mom and Me in wobbly handwriting. Something Mr. Myung had drawn as a little boy. His mother had kept it all these years, and now he kept it in turn. The kettle whistled, startling her. As Kiana made her tea, she found herself wondering about the man whose home she was now sharing. The feared crime boss who kept a childhood drawing hidden in his kitchen. Who promised her safety and asked nothing in return. Who apparently couldn't father children, a secret shame in a world where legacy was everything. Tea in hand, Kiana wandered back toward her room. But as she passed Mr. Myung's study, she paused. The door was still open from when he'd left in such a hurry. She shouldn't. But then again, she was his wife now, wasn't she? At least on paper. And if they were going to survive 3 years together, she needed to understand him better. Decision made, Kiana slipped inside the study. She wasn't looking for anything specific, just clues. Hints about the man behind the fearsome reputation. The desk was mostly cleared now. He must have taken the important papers with him. The cabinet where he'd kept the gun was locked again. But on a side table, partially covered by a newspaper, was a folder. Medical records, from the look of the forms peeking out. Kiana hesitated only briefly before picking it up. As a nurse, she'd seen plenty of medical files. But this felt different. Personal. Invasive. Still, she opened it. The records were from 6 years ago. Emergency surgery following a stabbing. Multiple procedures. And then, in clinical language that couldn't hide the devastating news: permanent damage to certain nerves and blood vessels. Complete inability to achieve or maintain an erection. Fertility effectively zero. Kiana closed the folder, feeling like she'd seen something she shouldn't have. This wasn't just a medical condition. For a man in Mr. Myung's position, this was a catastrophic weakness. The kind enemies would exploit without mercy. No wonder he kept it secret. No wonder his mother had worried about him. Kiana returned the folder exactly as she'd found it. As she turned to leave, her eye caught something else, a small, leather-bound book on the shelf. It looked out of place among the business texts and reference volumes. She pulled it out carefully. A poetry book. Korean on one side, English translations on the other. And it had been read, repeatedly, from the looks of the worn spine and marked pages. The Dragon of Manhattan read poetry in the quiet hours. Kiana replaced the book and left the study, closing the door behind her. She felt strangely unsettled. The man she'd agreed to marry, the dangerous criminal, the feared boss, was revealing himself to be far more complex than she'd imagined. A man who kept childhood drawings and read poetry. Who suffered a devastating injury in silence. Who offered her protection and privacy when most men in his position would have demanded their rights as a husband. Back in her room, Kiana set her tea down and went to the window. The snow was letting up now, the city emerging from beneath its white blanket. Far below, a single black car moved slowly down the street. Then stopped. Right in front of their building. A chill ran through her that had nothing to do with the winter night. Something about that car felt wrong. The way it just sat there, engine running, no one getting in or out. Watching. Kiana stepped back from the window, suddenly very aware of how exposed she was against the lights of her room. She quickly turned off the lamp, plunging the space into darkness, then cautiously moved back to peek outside. The car was still there. She grabbed her phone, wondering if she should call Mr. Myung. Would he think she was being paranoid? Was this normal in his world, cars watching buildings late at night? Before she could decide, her phone buzzed in her hand. A text from an unknown number. Does your husband know about the baby? Kiana nearly dropped the phone. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she stared at the words on the screen. How? How could anyone know about that? She'd never told anyone. Not her father, not her friends. Only Madame Beck had known, and now she was dead. Another text came through. Park says hello. Park. Mr. Myung's cousin. The man who stood to inherit everything if Myung had no children of his own. How was he connected to this? Kiana's mind raced. She needed to tell Mr. Myung everything now. No more secrets, no more waiting for the right moment. She should call him, tell him to come home immediately. But what if his phone was monitored? What if saying too much put them both in more danger? She settled for a simple text. Someone's watching the building. Please come back soon. Then she gathered all the papers, the hospital records, the letter from his mother, the new letter she'd found in the safe, and put them in her purse. Whatever happened next, she needed these with her. As she did, her eyes fell on the original document she'd been planning to show him before he was called away. The one that would change everything. The birth certificate. Across town, Mr. Myung was in the back of his car, reviewing security footage from the warehouse. The attackers had been professional, faces covered, movements efficient. But something about their methods seemed familiar. The Park family uses similar tactics, Kim observed from the seat beside him. But they wouldn't dare move against you directly. Not unless they thought they had an advantage, Mr. Myung said quietly. His phone buzzed with a text. Kiana. Someone's watching the building. Please come back soon. His body tensed instantly. Turn around, he ordered the driver. Back to the penthouse. Now. The car swerved in a sharp U-turn, tires sliding slightly on the snowy street. Sir? Kim asked, alarmed. Someone's watching my wife. The words came out in a growl. His wife. The woman he'd promised to protect. The woman who'd been about to share some secret from his mother when he was called away. The woman who apparently had some connection to Park he didn't understand. As they raced through the empty streets, his secure phone rang. Unknown number. Myung, he answered curtly. The dragon takes a wife, a digitally altered voice said. How unexpected. Especially given your condition. Mr. Myung's blood went cold. Only 3 people knew about his injury: his mother, now dead, his personal doctor, paid extremely well for silence, and his cousin Park. Who is this? He demanded. A friend with helpful information, the voice continued. We know what you can't give her. But do you know what she can give you? The line went dead. Mr. Myung stared at the phone, that cold feeling spreading through his chest. What did they mean? What could Kiana possibly give him that would matter to these people? And why did they think he didn't know about it? The car sped through a yellow light, snow swirling in their headlights. Mr. Myung checked his gun, then the knife in his boot. If anyone had touched her, had frightened her in any way, they wouldn't live to see morning. This wasn't just about business anymore. This was personal. As Myung raced back to the penthouse, his phone rang. We know what you can't give her, a voice said. But do you know what she can give you? The line went dead. Myung pressed the accelerator to the floor. Kiana had never seen a gun before tonight. Now there were 3 men with them in the penthouse, all armed, all watching the elevators and windows as if death might arrive at any moment. They'd shown up 15 minutes after her text to Mr. Myung, silent men in dark suits who positioned themselves throughout the apartment with cold efficiency. None of them spoke to her. They just nodded respectfully and took their posts. Kiana sat on the edge of the couch, still in her robe, clutching her purse with all the important papers inside. The birth certificate felt like it was burning a hole through the leather. When the private elevator finally dinged at 3:47 a.m., everyone tensed. One of the men moved in front of Kiana protectively, gun drawn and ready. But it was Mr. Myung who stepped out, his face like thunder, Kim right behind him. Stand down, he ordered, and the guns disappeared as quickly as they'd appeared. His eyes found Kiana immediately, scanning her from head to toe as if checking for injuries. Are you all right? She nodded, suddenly realizing how she must look, hair a mess, barefoot in pajamas and a robe, clearly scared out of her mind. I'm fine. Just confused. The car? Is it still there? He asked, crossing to the window. It left about 10 minutes ago. Right after these men arrived. Mr. Myung's jaw tightened. He turned to Kim. Full security protocol. No one in or out without my direct approval. I want the building swept top to bottom. Kim nodded and started giving orders to the security team, his voice low and urgent. What's happening? Kiana asked, hating how small her voice sounded. Mr. Myung finally looked at her properly, something softening slightly in his expression. Someone's making threats. Testing boundaries. Because of me? Because we got married? Partially. He hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Come with me. He led her back to his study and closed the door, shutting out the quiet chaos of security preparations. For a moment, he just stood there, studying her face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. Did my cousin Park ever contact you? He asked finally. The question caught her completely off guard. Park? No. I don't even know what he looks like. You're sure? He never approached you, called you, sent messages through someone else? No, never. Kiana hesitated. But someone texted me tonight. They mentioned him. Mr. Myung went very still. What did they say? Does your husband know about the baby? And then, Park says hello. She watched his face carefully. I don't understand how they could know about. She stopped herself, realizing she'd said too much. Know about what? His voice was dangerously quiet now. Kiana took a deep breath. No more secrets. No more waiting. I should have told you at dinner. Or when I came to your study earlier. But I was scared and then you got called away. She opened her purse with trembling fingers. Before I show you this, you need to know I never lied to you. I just didn't tell the whole truth. About? About why your mother chose me. She pulled out the birth certificate, the paper that had haunted her for 7 years, and held it out to him. About this. Mr. Myung took it slowly, eyes never leaving her face until he finally looked down at the document in his hands. It was a standard birth certificate. Female child. Born 7 years ago at Brooklyn Methodist Hospital. Mother, Kiana Rowe. Father, listed as unknown. He looked back up at her, confusion clear in his eyes. You have a child? Had, she whispered, the words still painful after all this time. I gave her up for adoption. I was 20, still in school, completely broke. The father disappeared the minute I told him I was pregnant. Understanding dawned slowly on his face. And my mother knew about this? Not at first. But one night, during a really bad pain episode, she asked why I looked so sad sometimes. Why I checked my phone every day on the same date. Kiana swallowed hard. I don't know why, but I told her everything. About the baby, about giving her up, about how I'd never even gotten to hold her. Mr. Myung sat down heavily in his desk chair, still holding the birth certificate. And that's why she chose you? Because you'd had a child? Yes. No. It's more complicated than that. Kiana rubbed her temples. Your mother believed in signs. In fate. When she found out I'd given birth to a healthy baby girl 7 years ago, almost to the day of your injury, she said it was meant to be. Meant to be what? A cosmic joke? His voice had an edge now. My wife had a child she gave up, while I can never have one at all? The bitterness in his words made Kiana flinch. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I should have told you sooner. Mr. Myung was silent for a long moment, just staring at the birth certificate. When he finally spoke, his voice was controlled again, all emotion carefully packed away. We have more immediate concerns right now. Someone is targeting us, using information they shouldn't have. Did you tell anyone else about the baby? Anyone at all? No. Only your mother knew. And you told her while she was in the hospital? Kiana nodded. Then someone was listening. Hospital rooms aren't secure. Before she could respond, there was a sharp knock at the door. Kim entered without waiting. Sir, security sweep is complete. Building is clear, but we found surveillance equipment in the lobby. Recently installed. And the car? Gone, but we got a partial plate. Running it now. Mr. Myung nodded. Keep me updated. When Kim left, the room fell silent again. Kiana watched Mr. Myung's face, trying to read his thoughts. His expression gave away nothing. Finally, she couldn't stand it anymore. I saw your medical records, she blurted out. His head snapped up, eyes narrowing. You what? When you were gone. I came in here looking for. I don't know what. Answers, I guess. She wrapped her arms around herself. I saw the file about your injury. About what it means for you. Mr. Myung's face hardened. So you decided to snoop through my private papers? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. She met his gaze directly. But I'm your wife now, even if it's just on paper. If we're going to survive the next 3 years, there can't be these huge secrets between us. Like the secret of your child, he shot back. Yes, exactly like that. Kiana's voice rose slightly. I'm trying to be honest with you now. I'm trying to tell you everything. He stood abruptly, turning away from her to stare out the window. His shoulders were rigid with tension. My injury is not something I discuss. Ever. I understand that, Kiana said more gently. But whoever sent those texts, whoever attacked your warehouse, they know about it. They're using it against you. And they know about your baby. They're using that too. He turned back to face her. The question is, how? And why now? A sudden crash from somewhere in the penthouse cut off any response she might have made. Raised voices. A shout. Mr. Myung moved instantly, pulling her behind his desk. Stay down, he ordered, drawing his gun in one smooth motion. Kiana's heart hammered in her chest as he crossed to the door, opened it a crack, and peered out. Whatever he saw made him curse under his breath. They've breached the west entrance, he said, keeping his voice low. At least 3 men. Kim and the team are engaging. The sound of gunfire made Kiana flinch. This couldn't be happening. People shooting in a Manhattan penthouse? It felt like a movie, not real life. We need to go. Now. Mr. Myung moved back to her, reaching for her arm. Is there anything else you absolutely need? Anything you can't leave without? Kiana clutched her purse tighter. I have everything important right here. Good. He led her to what looked like a solid wall and pressed his palm against it. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a narrow passageway. Service corridor. Leads to a private elevator the staff uses. He pushed her gently ahead of him. Go. I'll be right behind you. The corridor was dimly lit and smelled of cleaning supplies. Kiana hurried along it, heart pounding in her ears, all too aware of the sounds of conflict growing fainter behind them. Mr. Myung followed, gun still drawn, constantly checking over his shoulder. They reached a small elevator at the end of the corridor. He swiped a keycard and the doors opened silently. This will take us to the parking garage. I have a car there that's not registered to me. He ushered her inside. Once we're clear of the building, we'll go somewhere safe. As they slipped into the service elevator, Kiana grabbed his arm. There's something you need to know before we go anywhere, she said. Something about why your mother chose me specifically. Mr. Myung looked at her, sudden understanding dawning in his eyes. It's not about the debt at all, is it? He whispered. They say the truth always comes out. For Kiana and Myung, it came out in a safe house in Brooklyn, with rain hammering the windows and danger closing in from all sides. The safe house wasn't what Kiana expected. No fancy security system or steel doors. Just a normal-looking brownstone on a quiet street. The kind of place nobody would look twice at. My mother bought it years ago under a different name, Mr. Myung explained as he checked the locks for the 3rd time. No one knows about it except me and Kim. The place was simple inside, basic furniture, stocked kitchen, nothing personal. Just a place to disappear when needed. Kiana sat at the kitchen table, still wearing the clothes she'd thrown on during their escape, jeans, sweater, sneakers. Her hair was damp from the rain that had started just as they arrived. In her hands was a mug of tea Mr. Myung had made her. The normalcy of that gesture, the feared crime boss making her tea, seemed bizarre after the gunfire they'd left behind. Kim says the penthouse is secure again, he said, putting his phone down. No serious injuries on our side. The intruders escaped. Who were they? Kiana asked. Not sure yet. But the timing, right after the warehouse fire. He shook his head. Someone's making a move against me. Using my marriage as an excuse. The word marriage hung in the air between them. This strange, sudden union that had brought them both to this moment. In the elevator, Mr. Myung said quietly, You were going to tell me something. About why my mother chose you specifically. Kiana's fingers tightened around her mug. This was it. The moment everything would change. I showed you the birth certificate, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. But I didn't tell you what happened after I gave my baby up. Mr. Myung sat across from her, his face carefully neutral. Tell me now. 7 years ago, I was a mess. 20 years old, no money, no support. The guy I thought loved me took off the minute I told him I was pregnant. Kiana stared into her tea, avoiding his eyes. I wanted to keep her. I really did. But I couldn't even take care of myself, let alone a baby. So you chose adoption. A private agency. They promised she'd go to a good home, a family that could give her everything I couldn't. The old pain washed over her. They let me hold her once, right after she was born. Just once. Then they took her away. Mr. Myung was silent, just watching her with those intense eyes. For years, I tried to move on. Told myself she was better off. But every year on her birthday, I'd fall apart. Kiana finally looked up at him. That's what your mother noticed. I was taking care of her the night of my daughter's 6th birthday. She found me crying in the bathroom during my break. And you told her everything. Not at first. But your mother, she had this way of getting people to talk. A ghost of a smile touched Kiana's lips. She got the whole story out of me. The pregnancy, the adoption, how I'd never stopped wondering where my baby was, if she was happy, if she was loved. Kiana took a deep breath, steeling herself for the next part. 2 nights later, your mother called me into her room. She was having a good day, less pain, more lucid. She asked me very specific questions about the adoption. The agency name. The exact date. If I'd signed away all rights. Mr. Myung leaned forward slightly, his expression changing as understanding began to dawn. Then she showed me a photograph. Kiana's voice wavered. A little girl, about 6 years old. Beautiful. Playing in what looked like a fancy backyard. My mother had a photo of your daughter? The disbelief was clear in his voice. Yes. And then she told me something that changed everything. Kiana swallowed hard. She said, that's my grandniece. My nephew Park adopted her 3 years ago. The color drained from Mr. Myung's face. What? Your cousin Park adopted my baby. My daughter has been part of your family for years, and I never knew. Your mother never knew, until I told her my story and she connected the dots. The rain beat harder against the windows, filling the silence that stretched between them. That's not possible, he finally said, his voice hoarse. I didn't believe it either. But she showed me more pictures. The timing matched exactly. The agency matched. And when I saw her face. Kiana's eyes filled with tears. She has my nose. My chin. There was no doubt. Mr. Myung stood abruptly, pacing the small kitchen. Why would Park adopt a child? He's never shown any interest in family. In responsibility. Your mother had a theory about that too. Kiana watched him move, like a caged animal. She thought it was about succession. About positioning himself to take over if anything happened to you. A ready-made heir, he murmured. Well, I couldn't produce one of my own. Yes. But he never expected the birth mother to show up in his world. To have any connection to your family. Kiana stood now too, facing him across the room. Your mother said it was fate. That out of all the babies in New York, her nephew had adopted mine. Mr. Myung stopped pacing, staring at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. So my mother's grand plan was what? Marry me to the mother of the child Park adopted? Create some kind of claim? More than that. Kiana reached for her purse, pulling out the letter she'd found in his safe. She left this for me. I haven't opened it yet. The instructions said I should only read it after telling you everything. She held it out to him. After a moment's hesitation, he took it. Open it, she said softly. Please. Mr. Myung broke the seal carefully, unfolding the single page inside. As he read, his expression changed, shock, disbelief, then something deeper. Something that looked almost like hope. When he finished, he handed it to her wordlessly. Kiana read quickly, her heart pounding. My dear Kiana. If you're reading this, you've told my son everything. About your daughter. About Park. About the remarkable coincidence that brought you into my hospital room. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in fate. And fate has given us all a second chance. My son cannot father children. This is his greatest pain, though he would never admit it. You have a daughter you were forced to give up. This is yours. Together, you can heal each other. I have confirmed through private investigators that your daughter is indeed the child Park adopted. I have also confirmed that the adoption was not entirely legal. Corners were cut. Papers were falsified. This gives you leverage. With my son's resources and your maternal rights, you can bring her home. Where she belongs. With both of you. My final wish is to see my family whole again. My son with the heir he needs. You with the daughter you never stopped loving. And my grandniece with her rightful parents. Trust each other. Protect each other. And forgive an old woman for arranging things from beyond the grave. With all my love. Mother Beck. Kiana looked up from the letter, tears streaming down her face. She wanted us to get my daughter back. To raise her together. Mr. Myung was staring out the window, his back to her, shoulders rigid. Park would never allow it. If what my mother says is true, if the adoption wasn't entirely legal, he'd do anything to keep that hidden. That's why he's coming after us now, Kiana said, the pieces suddenly fitting together. He must have had someone listening in the hospital. He knows I'm the birth mother. He knows your mother told me about the adoption. And he knows I can't have children of my own. Mr. Myung turned to face her, his expression raw in a way she hadn't seen before. He's afraid I'll try to claim your daughter as my heir. Use her to secure my position. Would you? Kiana asked quietly. The question hung between them, heavy with implication. I don't know, he answered honestly. 24 hours ago, I didn't even know she existed. Kiana moved closer to him, close enough to see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. I've spent 7 years wondering where she was, if she was happy. Dreaming about finding her someday, but knowing it was impossible. And now? Now I know exactly where she is. I know who has her. Her voice grew stronger. And if what your mother said is true, if Park did something illegal to get her, then maybe. Maybe we have a chance to get her back, Mr. Myung finished, something shifting in his expression. To bring her home. The word home seemed to surprise them both. As if they'd momentarily forgotten this was a temporary arrangement, a 3-year contract, not a real family. I should show you something else, Kiana said, reaching into her purse again. She pulled out a small, worn photograph and handed it to him. This is her. The day she was born. Mr. Myung took the photo carefully. A tiny baby, red-faced and wrinkled, wrapped in a pink hospital blanket. She was so small, he said softly. So perfect. Yes, Kiana whispered. She was. Something changed in that moment. A shift so subtle it was almost imperceptible. The space between them seemed to shrink, the air charged with a new kind of energy. If we do this, Mr. Myung said slowly, if we try to get her back, it means war with Park. He won't just hand her over. I know. It would be dangerous. For all of us. I know that too. Kiana met his gaze directly. But she's my daughter. I've lost her once. I won't lose her again. Mr. Myung studied her face, seeing the determination there, the strength he hadn't fully recognized before. What's her name? He asked suddenly. I named her Lily, Kiana said, her voice catching. But I don't know what name they gave her after the adoption. We'll find out, he said, with the quiet certainty of a man used to getting what he wanted. We'll find out everything. He walked to the window again, watching as the first hints of dawn began to lighten the rain-soaked streets. The storm was passing, but they both knew another kind of storm was just beginning. Dawn was breaking over Brooklyn when Myung finally spoke. My cousin Park, he said, voice hollow with realization. The boy he adopted 3 years ago. Is that? Kiana nodded slowly. Your mother showed me pictures. He has your eyes. The most dangerous man in Manhattan sat with his hands shaking as the sun rose. Not from fear. Not from rage. But from something he'd never allowed himself to feel, hope. Mr. Myung, no, just Myung now, at least between them, stared at the photo in his hand. The little girl with Kiana's chin and his eyes. A child he'd never known existed until a few hours ago. Lily, he said softly, testing the name on his tongue. Across the safe house kitchen, Kiana looked up from the coffee she was making. That's what I named her. Park probably changed it. Minji, Myung said. He calls her Minji. Kiana's hands stilled. You've seen her before? At family gatherings. A few times. He shook his head, still processing the impossible truth. I never paid much attention.